On a humid afternoon in late July 2017, Memphis, Tennessee, a city celebrated for its soulful music and deep cultural roots, became the backdrop for a chilling tragedy. Nadia Wilson, a vibrant 29-year-old Black American woman with dreams as expansive as her radiant smile, was in the final stages of preparing for her wedding. She had spent months meticulously planning every detail, from selecting the perfect champagne-colored table linens to choosing an intimate, ivy-covered garden venue tucked away in the heart of downtown Memphis. Every decision reflected her unique sense of style and love for elegance. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, a celebration of love and joy. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing, one that Nadia could never have anticipated. Her best friend, Simone Carter, had been by her side for nearly 2 decades. The two had been inseparable since their high school days at Central High, where they bonded over late-night phone calls and dreams of a brighter future. To Nadia, Simone wasn't just a friend, she was family, the kind of person you trusted with your deepest secrets. It seemed only natural that Simone would play a prominent role in the wedding. But beneath Simone's warm smile and encouraging words lay something darker, an unspoken resentment, a simmering envy that had been growing for years. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, subtle signs began to emerge. Simone missed several important planning meetings, offering vague excuses. She showed up late to the bridal shower and seemed distant, almost distracted. Nadia brushed it off, convincing herself that Simone was simply overwhelmed with her own life. After all, Simone had always been her rock. But as the days passed, the cracks in their friendship deepened, even as the wedding drew closer. By the time July 29th arrived, the air was thick with more than just the Tennessee heat. There was an unshakable tension, a sense that something was about to shift. As Nadia stood in her satin robe, surrounded by her bridesmaids in the suite of a historic downtown hotel, the joy she should have felt was tainted by an inexplicable unease. And then it happened. Nadia Wilson's life had always been a testament to perseverance and ambition. Born and raised in South Memphis, she was the youngest of 3 siblings and the pride of her family. Her parents, hardworking and devout, instilled in her a belief that with determination and faith, there were no limits to what she could achieve. By 27, Nadia had completed her MBA, secured a prominent position as a marketing executive for a top regional firm, and purchased her first home, a charming bungalow with a bright yellow door, symbolic of her sunny outlook on life. To her friends and colleagues, Nadia was the embodiment of grace under pressure. She had an infectious laugh, a meticulous sense of style, and a heart that seemed boundless in its capacity for kindness. But if there was one thing Nadia loved more than her flourishing career or her close-knit friendships, it was Elijah Banks. Elijah was the kind of man who commanded attention effortlessly, a high school math teacher with a passion for mentoring youth. His calm demeanor and warm smile made him the perfect counterpart to Nadia's vibrant energy. The two had met at a community fundraiser 3 years earlier, and their connection was instant. As their relationship blossomed, so did their shared dreams of building a life together, a life filled with laughter, love, and eventually, a family of their own. Their engagement was nothing short of magical. Elijah had proposed during a surprise picnic at Shelby Farms Park, with the sunset casting a golden hue over the lake. As he slipped the delicate rose gold ring onto her finger, Nadia felt her world align perfectly. Planning their wedding became her new passion project, and every detail reflected the essence of their love story, from handwritten vows to personalized wedding favors. Standing by her side throughout this whirlwind of preparations was Simone Carter. Simone was the kind of friend many would envy, loyal, dependable, and fiercely protective. She had been there for Nadia through breakups, career milestones, and family gatherings. Nadia often said Simone was like a sister to her. It was Simone who had first suggested the garden venue, Simone who helped her narrow down her dress choices, and Simone who organized the bridal party schedule with precision. On the surface, it seemed like the perfect partnership. Yet, in quieter moments, Nadia couldn't shake the subtle changes in Simone's behavior. While she tried to dismiss her concerns, small incidents began to gnaw at her. Simone seemed less enthusiastic than usual, her once frequent compliments replaced by an unfamiliar coolness. At first, Nadia chalked it up to stress or jealousy, a natural reaction for a single friend watching someone close take such a monumental step. But deep down, there was a nagging sense that something wasn't quite right. As the wedding day approached, Nadia buried her doubts beneath a mountain of tasks. The final fittings, floral arrangements, and guest lists demanded her full attention. Her excitement was uncontainable, and for every fleeting moment of unease, there were 10 moments of joy. Friends and family marveled at how effortlessly she managed it all, unaware of the undercurrents of tension between the bride and her maid of honor. Simone Carter had always been a puzzle wrapped in charm. Growing up in the same Memphis neighborhood as Nadia, she carried an air of mystery that drew people in effortlessly. Her sharp wit and natural beauty made her the center of attention wherever she went. But Simone never stayed in the spotlight for long. She had a knack for deflecting personal questions with humor or a quick change of subject, leaving those around her intrigued but never fully knowing her. To Nadia, this enigmatic quality only deepened their bond. She loved Simone for her fierce loyalty and unflinching honesty, qualities that had seemed unshakable for nearly 2 decades. But Simone's life had always been in sharp contrast to Nadia's. While Nadia climbed the corporate ladder, Simone seemed stuck in place. She worked a string of retail jobs, never staying long enough to establish a career. Her small apartment in Midtown Memphis was a far cry from Nadia's well-kept home, and where Nadia's life was filled with celebrations of success, Simone's was marked by an unspoken frustration, a sense that she had been left behind. Yet despite these differences, Nadia never let Simone's struggles affect their friendship. She was Simone's biggest cheerleader, offering encouragement and support whenever she could. Their bond had been forged during the chaos of high school. Nadia had been the overachiever, constantly balancing extracurriculars, honor roll, and part-time jobs. Simone was the rebellious counterpart, the one who skipped class to hang out in the park or showed up to school with stories of late-night adventures. They balanced each other in a way that felt natural, like two halves of a whole. Nadia provided stability, while Simone brought excitement and spontaneity. Over the years, their lives took different paths, but their connection remained strong, or so Nadia believed. In hindsight, there were warning signs that something was amiss. Simone's sarcastic remarks about Nadia's achievements became more frequent. Comments like, "Must be nice to have everything handed to you," though said with a smile, carried an edge that Nadia dismissed as harmless banter. When Nadia got her promotion, Simone had congratulated her, but her tone felt off, as if the words were forced. Nadia brushed it aside, attributing it to Simone's ongoing struggles. She told herself that Simone was just having a rough time and that their friendship would weather any storm. What Nadia didn't know was that Simone had been nursing a secret obsession for years. She had measured herself against Nadia, tallying every perceived slight, every success that seemed to widen the gap between them. Simone's envy had grown slowly, like a shadow that followed her everywhere. It wasn't just about jealousy over Nadia's career or her home, it was about Elijah. Simone had harbored feelings for him since the day they met, though she never dared to voice them. Watching Nadia and Elijah together, seeing the love and joy they shared, felt like a cruel reminder of everything Simone didn't have. Simone's financial struggles only deepened her resentment. While Nadia thrived in her high-powered career, Simone barely made ends meet. The disparity between their lifestyles was glaring, especially during the wedding preparations. Simone couldn't afford the expensive dress Nadia had chosen for the bridal party or the lavish bachelorette trip. She went along with it all, masking her discomfort with smiles and feigned enthusiasm. But inside she felt humiliated. The wedding, meant to be a celebration of love, became a symbol of everything that separated them, a glaring spotlight on all the ways Nadia's life seemed perfect, while Simone's remained stagnant. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, Simone's bitterness grew harder to hide. She started making excuses to avoid wedding-related events, and when she did show up, her mood was noticeably different. Nadia, ever the optimist, ignored these changes, believing that Simone was simply overwhelmed. What Nadia couldn't see was that Simone's resentment had reached a breaking point. Behind her warm facade, Simone was plotting something that would change both their lives forever. The day before the wedding began with a sense of controlled chaos. Nadia had an endless checklist of last-minute details to oversee, from the arrival of the florist to confirming the timing of the ceremony with the event coordinator. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls and messages, but she remained radiant, her excitement carrying her through the day. Her bridesmaids, including Simone, rallied around her, ensuring everything went as planned. To everyone around her, Nadia seemed like the picture of a perfect bride, happy, confident, and ready to step into her future. Simone had stayed close to Nadia throughout the day, shadowing her every move with an efficiency that seemed both reassuring and overbearing. She insisted on handling small errands and offered to collect the final piece of the wedding ensemble, Nadia's veil, from the boutique. Nadia, too distracted by the flurry of activity, saw Simone's attentiveness as an act of devotion, not realizing the sinister intent behind it. As the evening approached, Simone's carefully laid trap began to take shape. She suggested a quiet dinner at the bridal suite for just the two of them, a way to unwind before the big day. Nadia, exhausted and grateful, agreed without hesitation. The atmosphere was lighthearted as they reminisced about old times and shared laughs over a bottle of wine. Simone was meticulous in her approach, using every moment to deepen Nadia's trust while subtly steering the evening toward her plan. When the dinner wrapped up, Simone casually mentioned needing to retrieve a last-minute item from her car. She asked Nadia to come with her, framing it as a chance to escape the growing buzz of the bridal party for a moment. Nadia, always obliging, followed her without question. They walked together into the cool night air, the hum of downtown Memphis fading as they approached the car. Simone had chosen the parking lot with precision. It was dimly lit, tucked away behind the boutique hotel where the wedding party was staying. As they reached her car, Simone fumbled with her keys, pretending to search for the item she claimed to have forgotten. Nadia stood a few feet away, her arms crossed against the chill, laughing softly at Simone's clumsiness. The attack was swift and brutal, leaving no room for escape. Simone struck with calculated force, using a heavy blunt object she had hidden in the car. Nadia's laughter turned into a sharp cry of pain, but the parking lot's isolation ensured that no one heard her. Simone's movements were precise, her expression cold and devoid of the warmth she had so often displayed. As Nadia collapsed to the ground, her life ebbing away, Simone stood over her, breathing heavily, but showing no signs of hesitation. Once the act was done, Simone worked quickly. She dragged Nadia's lifeless body into the shadows, her hands shaking but her resolve unbroken. She retrieved the item she had planted earlier, a handwritten note meant to mislead anyone who found the scene. The note was designed to frame someone else, an untraceable figure Simone had fabricated in her twisted narrative. Hours passed before Nadia's body was discovered. A hotel staff member taking out the trash noticed something unusual in the shadows of the parking lot. At first, they assumed it was a guest who had passed out, but as they drew closer, the grim reality became clear. The staff member called 911, their voice trembling as they reported the gruesome discovery. The first responders arrived swiftly, their professionalism masking the horror they felt upon seeing the scene. A young paramedic later described the moment as one of eerie stillness, broken only by the flashing red and blue lights of the emergency vehicles. The parking lot became a flurry of activity as police cordoned off the area and began their investigation. Witness statements were taken, and the hotel staff was questioned, but no one had seen anything out of the ordinary. Simone, meanwhile, returned to the bridal suite with a calm demeanor. She joined the bridesmaids, offering updates about the preparations as if nothing had happened. She even joked with the group, her performance flawless. When the news of Nadia's death reached the suite, Simone was among the first to react with shock and disbelief. Her cries of anguish were so convincing that no one questioned her sincerity. As the night stretched into the early hours, the police began piecing together the details of what had transpired. But with no immediate leads and Simone's facade intact, the truth remained hidden, at least for now. The quiet stillness of the early morning was shattered by the arrival of flashing lights and the wailing sirens of emergency vehicles. Memphis police officers stepped out of their cruisers, their faces grim as they approached the scene. The body of Nadia Wilson lay partially concealed by shadows in the hotel parking lot, her once vibrant presence now reduced to a lifeless figure surrounded by stark yellow crime scene tape. The officers began their work with precision, documenting every detail with photographs and notes. The crime scene spoke volumes even before forensic experts arrived. The uneven smudges of blood near the body suggested a struggle. Nadia's hands bore defensive wounds, evidence that she had fought back against her attacker. Near her body, officers discovered a crumpled piece of paper, a note written hastily in what appeared to be a shaky hand. It contained cryptic phrases referencing an alleged argument and hinting at jealousy. At first glance, the note seemed to suggest a personal dispute, but its vagueness left more questions than answers. Detectives canvassed the hotel immediately, questioning guests and staff. Witness statements began to trickle in, though they offered little clarity. A desk clerk recalled seeing Nadia leave with another woman late that evening, but couldn't identify who it was. A delivery driver parked nearby had noticed two women walking toward the back of the lot, but had paid them little attention. No one reported hearing screams or seeing any direct confrontation, leaving investigators frustrated by the lack of clear leads. Then came the breakthrough. Surveillance footage from the hotel's security cameras provided the first glimpse of what might have happened. Grainy black and white images showed Nadia and Simone walking side by side toward the parking lot. The timestamp indicated it was shortly after midnight. The footage didn't capture the act itself, as the camera's angle left part of the lot in a blind spot, but it did show Simone returning alone minutes later, her calm, composed demeanor standing in stark contrast to the horror that had just unfolded. Detectives immediately turned their attention to Simone, whose role as Nadia's maid of honor gave her unrestricted access to the bride's movements. They requested her phone records, which painted a troubling picture. Text messages from Simone to Nadia were warm and friendly, consistent with their long-standing bond. But there were other texts, ones Simone had exchanged with an unidentified number, that caught investigators' attention. These messages hinted at coordination, referencing vague plans and the importance of timing. Further examination of digital evidence revealed more incriminating details. Simone's search history included phrases like how to stage a crime scene and untraceable weapons. She had also downloaded a messaging app known for its encryption, which she used to communicate with the unknown contact. Despite the app's privacy features, metadata from her phone confirmed the timing and frequency of these exchanges, aligning closely with the planning period for the wedding. Detectives pieced together the timeline with growing clarity. Simone's actions before, during, and after the crime were methodical, calculated to avoid suspicion. Her behavior in the bridal suite, her convincing display of grief, and her efforts to assist the police all pointed to someone skilled in deception. Yet, the weight of the evidence began to unravel her carefully constructed facade. The final piece of the puzzle came from a forensic sweep of Simone's car. Hidden beneath the passenger seat, investigators found the object used in the attack, the blunt weapon, wrapped hastily in cloth, bearing traces of blood that matched Nadia's. With this discovery, Simone's involvement became undeniable. Simone was brought in for questioning. At first, she maintained her innocence, her voice steady as she insisted she had no idea what had happened to her best friend. But as detectives laid out the evidence, the surveillance footage, the text messages, the weapon, her composure began to crack. The layers of her story fell apart piece by piece until the person behind the mask was finally revealed. While the investigation continued, the community around Nadia mourned her loss. The bright future she had been on the cusp of was now a memory, and those who knew her struggled to reconcile the tragedy with the person they had loved. As the case against Simone grew stronger, the questions remained. What had driven her to commit such a heinous act? And how had no one seen the danger lurking so close for so long? The case took a dramatic turn when investigators uncovered a small yet critical piece of evidence that tied Simone Carter directly to Nadia Wilson's murder. Forensic experts examining Simone's phone found an overlooked voice memo buried in her deleted files. It was a brief recording, seemingly accidental, capturing muffled snippets of a conversation. Although the audio was incomplete, two distinct phrases stood out. "Make it look natural," and "she'll never see it coming." This discovery, though chilling, provided the leverage detectives needed to dismantle Simone's carefully constructed alibi. As they revisited every detail, investigators began identifying the cracks in Simone's story. Her calm demeanor in the aftermath of Nadia's death had initially fooled those around her, but the more detectives scrutinized her timeline, the clearer her inconsistencies became. Simone had claimed to be in the bridal suite during the critical window of time, but surveillance footage and phone pings placed her outside, near the parking lot where Nadia was found. It was this contradiction that became the linchpin in the case against her. One of Simone's most significant missteps was the handling of the murder weapon. She had hastily wrapped the object and hidden it under her car seat, assuming it would remain undetected. However, traces of Nadia's blood were found on the fabric, along with Simone's fingerprints. This evidence, combined with her text messages and the suspicious note left at the scene, painted a picture of premeditation that was impossible to ignore. The final breakthrough came when police identified the recipient of Simone's encrypted messages. The contact turned out to be a local ex-convict with a history of minor offenses. When confronted, the individual confessed to being paid by Simone to create a distraction and supply her with the blunt weapon. While he claimed to have no knowledge of the full extent of her plan, his testimony placed Simone at the center of the conspiracy. Armed with an airtight case, detectives prepared to make their move. Simone was arrested at her Midtown apartment late one evening, just days after Nadia's murder. The arrest itself was uneventful. Simone opened the door with a composed expression, as if expecting their arrival. As officers read her rights, she maintained her silence, her face betraying no emotion. However, those closest to her later described her reaction as eerily detached, a stark contrast to the outbursts of grief she had displayed earlier. The news of Simone's arrest sent shockwaves through the community. Family and friends who had gathered to mourn Nadia's loss were blindsided by the revelation. Nadia's parents, who had welcomed Simone into their home countless times over the years, were devastated. Her mother in particular struggled to comprehend how someone they had treated like family could commit such a heinous act. Elijah Banks, Nadia's fiancé, was equally shattered. The woman who had stood beside them throughout their relationship, the one Nadia had trusted implicitly, was now accused of betrayal on the deepest level. Elijah's heartbreak turned to anger as the truth unfolded, his once kind words about Simone replaced by quiet, seething disbelief. Simone's own family was equally distraught. Her younger brother, who idolized her growing up, was vocal in his defense at first, insisting there had to be some mistake. But as the evidence mounted, their denial gave way to sorrow. Simone's parents, visibly broken, issued a statement expressing their condolences to Nadia's family, though they stopped short of fully addressing their daughter's role in the crime. As the truth unraveled, the community that had once celebrated Nadia's accomplishments now grieved the senseless loss of a bright, promising life. For those who knew Simone, the revelations forced them to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the reality of her actions. The courtroom, packed with spectators during Simone's arraignment, bore witness to the stark divide. One side filled with those mourning Nadia, the other grappling with the aftermath of Simone's betrayal. In the weeks that followed, as investigators finalized their case, one question lingered in the minds of everyone touched by this tragedy. What had driven Simone to such unimaginable lengths? While the evidence told the story of what happened, the why remained a haunting mystery. The trial of Simone Carter captured the attention of the entire Memphis community, drawing crowds to the courthouse and dominating local headlines. The prosecution painted a harrowing picture of betrayal and premeditation, laying out every piece of evidence with precision. They presented Simone's text messages, the weapon, the surveillance footage, and the testimony of the accomplice she had hired. Each detail was another nail in the coffin of Simone's defense, leaving little room for doubt about her culpability. The defense attempted to shift blame, suggesting Simone acted out of a momentary lapse in judgment brought on by emotional distress. Her lawyer argued that envy and a sense of inferiority, compounded by years of feeling overshadowed by Nadia, had clouded her judgment. They emphasized Simone's lack of prior criminal history and portrayed her as a person who had succumbed to overwhelming emotions rather than a calculated killer. However, the weight of the evidence and the cold, deliberate steps Simone had taken left the jury unmoved. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read: guilty of first-degree murder. Simone showed no outward reaction, her expression blank as the words echoed through the room. The sentencing followed weeks later, with the judge delivering a harsh but measured judgment. Simone was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a decision that reflected both the gravity of the crime and the betrayal it represented. The impact on the families was profound and enduring. Nadia's parents, once vibrant and full of pride for their daughter's achievements, were left heartbroken. Her mother spoke during the victim impact statement, describing the loss as a wound that would never heal. She spoke of the life Nadia had planned, the love she shared with Elijah, and the emptiness left in the wake of her death. Elijah too shared his anguish, recalling Nadia's laughter, her kindness, and the future they would never have together. His words brought many in the courtroom to tears. Simone's family, grappling with the reality of her actions, withdrew from public view. Her parents struggled to reconcile the daughter they had raised with the person convicted of such a heinous crime. They issued a public apology to Nadia's family, though their grief was compounded by shame and disbelief. Simone's younger brother, once her staunch defender, distanced himself from the case, unable to process the weight of her guilt. The community's response was a mix of mourning and outrage. Candlelight vigils were held in Nadia's honor, with hundreds gathering to celebrate her life and legacy. Friends and colleagues shared stories of her generosity, her drive, and the joy she brought to those around her. The tragedy also sparked conversations about the dangers of unchecked envy and the importance of addressing mental health issues. In the years that followed, Nadia's legacy continued to shine. Her family established a scholarship fund in her name, supporting young women pursuing careers in marketing and business. Her alma mater hosted annual events to honor her memory, ensuring her name remained synonymous with inspiration and success. The ivy-covered garden where she had planned to marry Elijah became a site of reflection and remembrance, its beauty a quiet testament to the life she had lived. For those who knew her, Nadia's story was one of light and promise, extinguished too soon but leaving an indelible mark on everyone she touched. And for the broader community, her tragedy served as a stark reminder of how deeply betrayal can cut and how resilience can transform even the darkest moments into something enduring and meaningful. Friendship is often described as a bond stronger than blood, a connection built on trust, shared experiences, and unwavering support. But what happens when that trust is shattered? The tragic story of Nadia Wilson serves as a haunting reminder that even the closest relationships can harbor hidden darkness. Simone Carter, a woman who stood beside Nadia in moments of joy and sorrow, ultimately became the architect of her demise. It's a betrayal so profound that it forces us to question the nature of trust and the masks people wear. This heartbreaking tale compels us to reflect on our own relationships. Are we attuned to the subtle warning signs of envy or resentment? Do we create spaces where feelings can be addressed before they turn into something dangerous? These are the questions that linger long after the courtroom closes and the headlines fade. As we honor Nadia's memory, let this story be a call to action, not just to cherish the friends who uplift us, but to foster open communication and emotional support within our circles. If you or someone you know is struggling with feelings of inadequacy or anger, don't hesitate to seek help. Sometimes the smallest intervention can prevent the greatest tragedies. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Unspoken Truths. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more disturbing true crime stories. Leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Let us know what you think. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.